Mr. James Scarlett. We go again.
Good afternoon, Gav. It is the 2nd of December at 2 p.m. So we are 4 hours into the post-damnation announcement world. How is that feeling for you?
Good, mate. Good. It's that's why I'm putting a nice, big, smiley, brave face. And I still feeling a wee bit, still feeling the after effects of the COVID, but otherwise, I am starting to clear up with it. And today's announcement has cheered me up no end. I've been sitting with it for a while. I've been sitting with my phone, like looking at it, going, "This looks exciting." These, like, across all aspects of your bands you might not have heard about, but are really exciting, like crippling alcoholism or Meryl Streak at the bottom of the poster, or Perturbator and the Haunted at the top of the poster, the Return of Stamping Ground. There's a brutal death metal band on there called either Broad Queen or Brody Queen. I'm not quite sure how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
Who This is their UK debut. Been a band for like 25 years. And went in a long hiatus apparently and they're back. So the announcement, I have never seen such wall to wall positivity for any announcement. I have now went back onto social media, all our platforms, even the ones you'd normally expect, the mess and the complaints. I have seen nothing but positive, not one negative comment, which I can't say I've ever experienced in 20 years. It will come, obviously. Someone's coming in to go, meh, lineup looks shite. But so far, positivity side to side. I thought it was exciting. I was banking on that, but I was just, it's been good to see the response. People, put it in context, a lot of people that you're trusting, the kind of people just bullshit, saying this lineup with 14 bands in it is as good to them as the lineup we just had, or better.
Amazing. That's fucking great. So before I tell you what I am excited about, what are people, there are particular bands standing out for you that people seem to be well up for?
It's the ones as you'd expect it, but across, so what you're getting is someone would be like, the Haunted and Stamping Ground come back, that Damnation nostalgia, bands that played like 2006 edition back when we were at Jelly's Rock World, they're getting name checked. And then you'll get just as many people going, fucking hell, the original lineup for Wormrot. It's like my favourite grindcore band. And you've got Pig Destroyer playing as well. So then the grindcore fans are kind of going, holy shit, Pig Destroyer and Wormrot. You've got your
I'd miss one, right? Is that because they've got a mad logo?
there, so the other one, so directly underneath Pig Destroyer, the one that's
Yeah,
sort
yeah.
of
Okay.
that's Wormrot.
Fucking bands, man.
And then you get that Brody Queen as well. You've got your brutal death metal fans that are a bit like used to seeing those guys in posters in the States or maybe extreme obscene extreme. Like fucking hell, finally. We don't need to get in a flight to go and see this band, or I thought I'd never see them. So and then you get the ones where it's just they've got great taste in music, frail body, Meryl Streak, crippling alcoholism, Ghost. It's it's just I'm excited to talk about that because like it's just a fucking and we're not often able to put 14 bands in an announcement because you're like, that's a fair chunk of our lineup. But if you get 50 bands to announce, 14's fine. You've still got plenty in
Yeah.
your up your sleeve. So I think there's been a shot to like, fuck, how many are there? Because that is none of those are our headliners. In fact, it's not even as if like, oh, here's where we went and spent any of the big bits in the budget. We've just they're just exciting. But this is what I want Damnation to be. I
Yeah.
want Damnation to be this. You don't worry about the band that we might need to chase that's 50 or 60 grand. Be excited about the fact we've got what I mean, a lot of people. Do you know Warning at all? The old school Doom band.
Yeah, yeah, I do, but not
They
really.
came for it.
Um,
Was Patrick Walker went on to do 40
yeah,
Watt Sun. Now they've
yeah,
got an album called Watching from a Distance, which is like a doomy prog emotional masterpiece that's just like dig at the tissues and have a good cry to yourself. Now they done that back in maybe in Damnation 2016 and then they went away again. And so the likes of having Warning and Stamping Ground there, there's people that are looking at post going, shit, I was never expecting the bands to ever be back. Never mind back again, playing exclusive dates or doing an album that I never thought I'd hear. So the response has been fucking brilliant.
you're going
Absolutely.
to need some more security, aren't you? It's got it's got the look of like a crazy lineup about
It's
it.
got
Because
the
basically,
makings.
Stamping Ground will be that'll have your top off, no doubt. The Haunted will be lively. Pig Destroyer, Wormrot. I mean, it's
Hell
pretty
Ripper.
fucking yeah. I like
Hell
it.
Ripper. And I agree. What was the Portuguese black metal band Guerrilla? Are they on your because they're very well thought of
Yeah,
and
absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
and a more progressive sort of I don't know, just more experimental black metal than you get. You're like they're that band that when you talk to people in the industry, like if you were looking for like the next behemoth and a band that could break through for that the black metal circuit and become like more mainstream, it's like this Portuguese band that people are going absolute mental for. So, aye, loving it.
Good. So I'll give you a couple of things I'm really excited about. You'd be surprised about a couple of these as well. Firstly, Hell Ripper. That last album, something about warlocks, was fucking great. It's just like, I don't know. It's like one guy. It's a Scottish guy, isn't it?
It's
It's
a
just like
Scottish
one guy sat
uh,
in his fucking in his
garage,
pit
gone
and
fucking mental with
fucking
speed metal.
yeah, yeah. But it's got so much personality, and I need to revisit it. But yeah, it's like speed metal. It's like all the extreme metal genres. Super fucking impressive musicianship with actual songs. Yeah, I need to go back to that album actually. I, I mean, I think it's fucking brilliant that you've put Meryl Streep. That's awesome. I cannot wait to see how that goes down at Damnation. Crippling Alcoholism is another one. I've had that album on a lot the last 2 weeks, on your recommendation. So that,
You hear that,
but
people?
where did you? I was going to ask.
On Gavin's recommendation. So the first person to fucking mention that James he got him on a crippling alcoholism. I'm done. I'm done.
What I was going to ask you is, where did you hear about that band?
So I think in the very first instance, do you know you made the comment way back when we started doing this podcast? It's like there's nothing in particular that just turns you onto a band, but you just hear it for two or three different places, and it tends to be from sources, even if you don't know the person that well, that you just trust because whenever you read
Yeah.
them say something about a band or the bands that they like or the bands they're in, they just seem to always keep hitting the mark each time. I couldn't put my finger exactly and where the very first time was, but I think it was a combination of three or four different people on that forum who like the kinds of bands that I like, and it just get mentioned and mentioned, and I was like, okay, I will give because it started to get some people just like a band, but it started with like album of the year chat, and then when you're seeing that with two or three different people, you're like, right, okay, this is well worth it, and that caught me instantly that record because I had no idea if it was going to be grindcore or death metal when it started. I just went into it completely blind. It could have been anything, and then you've got this sort of over meets. I don't know. It's just so weirdly catchy and haunting and fucking depressive.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm prepared to try and describe it. I've been listening to it a lot the last 2 weeks. It's like Nick Cave or something on the vocals, but then with really some weird, dark kind of, like at times it reminds you of like a Chat Pile or a Daughters or something like that.
Yeah,
But yeah, I don't know. Um, that's gonna be cool though. I'm excited for that. And the one that you're definitely not going to see coming from me is that I'm a big fan of The Haunted, and fucking I'm well excited for this.
that. So, a peek behind the two promoters, one pod curtain. You suggested that you could just look at this lineup blind on spec the way we did with the downloading. I wasn't up for that idea at all because I was expecting you to look at it and go, oh, Perchpater. Oh, and also I know who Ghost and Meryl Streep are because I've booked those band. And then that been it. And then it'd been like an awkward silence between us going, right, Gav, best of luck with your festival, mate, but I have never heard of a single fucking band here. And here you are pulling out the fucking Haunted.
Mate, I told you I'm a metaler, didn't I? I was big into the Haunted back in the noughties. And yeah, super super excited. There's some fuck they really like them, so that's going to be good. I may even come out of retirement and come down the front with you for that. So yeah, I,
I was
I'm really happy with the lineup so far. Well done.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. That's I'm also very happy with the feedback so far. Seems great. No, I spoke previously about this. That's it. Cards are on the table. You don't need to buy blind now. You have a flavour of what Damnation is all about. These are a lot of very exciting bands. A lot of them UK exclusives. Crippling Alcohol's like a European debut. We have bands coming back like Warning, Stamping Ground. That's what we're all about. If you want the other 34 bands to be like this, to be exciting, to be exclusive, to be a bit out there, daring, what maybe you wouldn't expect, buy your fucking ticket. Buy your ticket. There's no more guessing. This isn't just saying, oh, trusting us. The bands, 14 bands are there. If you don't, if you want to see more, then that's fine also. You can be on the fence or you can not be into it. That's a valid answer. What is almost the death of any sort of innovation or being exciting is you saying to yourself, I am definitely going, and then no buying your ticket until next fucking June. You know what I mean? It's like you're robbing us of the chance of getting out there and booking more warnings and pig destroyers and the haunted, and then we're just going to have to go down because it's not a case of I'm not talking about this. People keep sort of misinterpreting. It's like I'm all the lineup's going to be dull or both. It's just like there's a difference between bands where you don't really you're putting your finger in the air and think how many tickets they sell, and there's bands there that you can say, we know for a fact the last time they were in London last year, they done 800 tickets. It's very comforting to book a band that played London last year and done 800 tickets because you know exactly what you're getting. You don't know what you're getting for a stamp ground. You don't know what you're getting for a warning. You don't know what you're getting for a Brody Queen. So it's a bit like, as exciting as those are, you really need the ticket sales behind you to keep going in that direction without getting a bit reckless. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Although am I right in thinking that Pig Destroyer is basically like it's like the arctangent's equivalent would be like Russian circles
Yes.
or Until Ultimate Fire. It's like the safe. It's like I don't mean safe in they're the least safe band in the world, but it's like a crowd pleaser, right? Pig
Yeah, I mean,
Destroyer.
there's absolutely no, you're not missing with Pig Destroyer are a weird one as well because the Pig Destroyer done the UK. We had them back for the first time in 8 years, so they done Damnation 2012, and
I
that was
saw
like the
that
first.
in the amphitheater stage.
Aye,
Yeah,
so that was like the first time they'd played the UK in maybe 10 years, and then when we brought them back for what was supposed to be the COVID years and it kept getting cancelled, they never did to it. That was the first time they'd been since that Damnation before. So it was like these decade spaces that we were getting to see Damnation, but when Pig Destroyer played Prowl on the Yard in the main arena, it was as busy as Nails and Gatekeeper was, if not even busier. It was to the back. You think this band could headline Damnation. That was the way you're looking at it. But then they come back to the UK and they go on a very successful run with Napalm Death, but they're supporting. So you're back to the reality of where Pig Destroyer really are in the world, not 6,000 in an arena. So, aye, it's a safe booking as well as everyone from Damnation, because even the grindcore, they're the grindcore bands you can still enjoy. You know,
yeah,
I mean, they're extremes, but there's just enough groove about them, enough metal in them that Pig Destroyer are just one of the ones that's just something you can latch on. I don't listen to endless amounts of grind, but Pig Destroyer are one of those bands like from that genre, they're my favourites. And either a big hit with the Damnation fans. But again, it's one of those ones where how many tickets did Pig Destroyer actually sell in Manchester when it's not under the Damnation banner? It's still a guess because Pig Destroyer probably haven't played Manchester in 20 years of their own headline show. So, aye. But these bookings, they're exciting to make, they're exciting to chase, to confirm, to announce. But you need to do 3,000-4,000 sales in the bag to continue down that path. So it's there. We've maybe done about 100 odd since the announcement, so that's not to be sniffed at in the start of December. But at the same time, is that trending towards doing our 2,500 or 2,300 we need to get to that 4,000 mark? I'm not so sure. So I appreciate every ticket sale as they come in. The power's ultimately in the fans' hands now. You don't even need to buy blind anymore. There is the flavour of what's there. It's up to them now to decide where we go from here. But ultimately, it looks like it's going to be a very successful Damnation next year.
fucking yes. Buy a fucking ticket now.
Listen
Amazing.
to
Well done,
Big
Gav.
Man. How have you been?
Oh, good, good. I've got one bit of heartwarming news for you, which I have to talk about, is that on Saturday, I went to a gig with my son Kit, who is 6, and it was a gig that was designed for kids, and it was we went to see a band called the Backhand Jags, who are a sort of metal band, really rock metal kind of bits of Slayer, bits of the Cramps. They kind of pick from loads of different genres. They're super fun. I'm good friends with their singer and guitarist Dave, and he's got kids, and so he gets entertaining kids. So Kit was my child Kit was really unsure about whether or not this was going to be good. He's like, "What the fuck? What are you talking about? What's there for children?" And I'm like, "We're just going to go and see." And he started the gig. We went down the front, so it's safe. My whole point of this is to talk about this is because it was a safe environment for kids. They weren't going to get trampled on.
Yeah.
And basically he started off sat on the floor, just like nodding his head. And by the second song, he was up. And by like the fourth song, he's like running around like he's like in a proper like download circle pit.
Yeah.
And I've got all these videos of him, and I was just like, I keep watching them because it makes me feel so like happy that the music like overtook, like he couldn't control it.
Yeah,
The music just got him,
yeah.
and he was fucking having it. And
It
it
happens to
made
us
me
all, kit mate. It happens to us all.
absolutely, but it made me think that there's a gap in the market here. In Bristol, there's all this stuff like raver tots and all this like hippie and raver culture music stuff where you can take your kids to it, like daytime raves and stuff. And no one ever does like a daytime metal all dayer for kids, where there isn't, you're not going to get kicked in the head by a 6'5"
Yeah,
giant.
yeah.
You own the mosh pit. And honestly, it made me feel so fucking happy to see him going for it. And I kind of want to start a business now. I'm not gonna, no
Doing
more
these
businesses,
shows.
but
Well, that's
yeah,
my daughter's 6, and she would be well up for. I saw Kit. I saw a couple of your videos. I saw him cutting the shapes, and I was like, "Good for you, wee man. Go for it."
yeah, it was good. So yeah, we'll see where that goes from there. But a couple of bits of news that I thought we should talk about this week. Um, the first one is Sick New World Festival. Now, the news is, as we announced on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, they'd gone and booked the biggest rock and heavy metal lineup ever. They booked all the bands, every single band under the sun, including some mad reformations and some huge bands like Metallica and Linkin Park. And we were like, we don't know how this festival's even going to work. It seems mental. Well, it turns out the festival's not going to work. They have cancelled. The organisers have cited unforeseen circumstances. Now, I don't really know, as is the way with some of these things, they haven't really said why. I did a bit of digging on the internet, and there's some people suggesting it was $500 for one day, and people couldn't afford it, and they didn't buy tickets, and that's why they cancelled. I don't know if that's true. I'm not being very journalistic about this at all because I just don't know. It's just the news
Yeah.
is
I
they
get I
cancelled.
get told a wee bit more sworn to secrecy on it, so I'm not going to breach that. But the unforeseen circumstance of ticket sales, that is, I mean, and I suppose that's unforeseen for everyone because no one goes into it and says, "Oh, we're only going to do X amount." They go into it and say, "We're going to do what we need to do," because that's the whole point, the business plan. So, unforeseen circumstances of ticket sales, and fuck, what chance did they have? I mean, ultimately, it's like you're just banking. Because I've had a few that have worked, haven't they? So the when we were young, and then they done it. They had a Sick New World, didn't they? The one that System of a Down headlined with
Yeah,
Slipknot
I think they've done
and
2 years
Sleep
previous.
Token. So it clearly was a model financially that did work. I mean, there's no way they'd done it, lost money, and then said let's do round two. So I'm not sure what was just different about this one. Why? Or people just went like, nah, the price is just too much by this point for that lineup. Not because that lineup wasn't spectacular, because it's still just in one day. And maybe if you went to the first New World and you're a bit like, oh, I'm going to go and see 48 of my favourite bands, no working at the mental maths of how 48 bands is never going to work for you in your 12-hour stretch. And then you realise you've just missed half or three quarters of them, then maybe you won't be willing to go put your hand back in your pocket. So I don't. All I know, or all I was told, was ticket sales weren't what was expected, and they pulled the plug before it got too late. So it's some of these things when it's just too good to be true. Maybe it is just too good to be true.
Yeah, I think you got a good point there. Maybe people clocked that it's not. They did it last year, and they're like, actually, this is shit because I can only see 6 bands in the day, and they're all playing for fucking 25 minutes. It's just, it doesn't really work. So anyway, I thought it's worth just touching on.
Absolutely.
The other thing I want to talk about was that last week. So I listened back to last week's podcast. Every week, you hear the podcast before it goes out. I never hear it before it goes out. So it goes out, and then on a Thursday at some point, I go for a walk in the park and I listen to us just to see, how it went and stuff. And I was listening back to when we were talking about promoting, tour promoting, and and kind of like how hard it is and risky it is for promoters. And my the one thing I thought I regretted was that we didn't mention bands and how hard it is for bands nowadays. And sort of as some sort of like it was meant to be thing, it is kind of it's popped into the news this week. So first of all, Laura Jane Grace, who is the lead singer from Against Me, she posted on social media this saying that the economics of a 1 month long European tour are these: $68,000 in total show guarantees, $86,000 in total expenses. If I make 20K in merch, I break even. However, if I go into profit, then my management will do a commission on the tour and I will owe them nearly £18,000. Meaning, if I want to cover my mortgage payment of around 2.5 grand a month, I have to net $40,000 before I get paid a dime. And Laura ends by saying, I despise the music industry, burn it to the ground. So, I mean, without, I won't necessarily dig into the numbers too far, but it's quite um, horrifying for artists out there nowadays. They're facing a lot of the pressures that we will talk about, no doubt, later on this podcast with John Rostron about about just rising costs across the world in everything. Um, so there was that. I'll let you come back on this. I'll just tell you the other part of it, Gav. So as well as what Laura said, there was this article in the Observer, um, which was talking about the fleecing of fans and saying that ticket markups had reached 41%. And basically it said ticket fees for live shows have risen substantially in the past decade, according to Observer analysis that found fans are paying markups as high as 41% over face value. Most of this money does not go to artists who have complained that they faced a cost of touring crisis. And then it goes on to say, and this is another element um, to the same thing that Laura Jane Grace is alluding to, is last week the singer Kate Nash held a protest outside the Live Nation offices after saying she is making more from selling pictures of her bottom on OnlyFans than touring. So for anyone who missed that, Kate Nash has started an OnlyFans account to make life as a touring musician um, sort of achievable and be able to actually do it. Now, we're not talking about tiny little artists here. We're talking about Laura from Against Me and Kate Nash. These are big sort of pop and rock stars. So I don't know. Maybe at some point we'll do a full episode on this, but it felt like it's news
Mate,
now.
I thought you were going to say maybe at some point we'll start an OnlyFans. Well, arse is it? Get this tour paid for.
I'm in. Um, but I, I genuinely, I'm not like rewriting history here, where I did listen to the podcast and think, fuck, we didn't really mention how hard it is for artists. And then
Yeah.
this week, it's been smash in the news. There
Yeah, I
you
mean,
go.
and that's fair play. You make a good point about mentioning it for artists. I suppose because you know what, we don't have the answers. We don't have that level of insight that we do as promoters, which is the main reason. And it is tough for artists, and the vast majority of artists out there, even at a sizable, go through most of their careers without really making much. I mean, a lot of them do it for the love of music, and if they can break even in a lot of circumstances on tour and go back and do their job, that's the reality. For a lot of even bands that you might see on a stage playing at a fucking festival with 20,000 people and be like, oh my God, they're doing well for themselves. That's not really the truth of the matter. It's like, I think you need to get to a certain level before it's actually a full-time job and you can make a decent salary. But with that, the Laura Jane Grace one, it was I love the transparency. I love that honesty. It's one of the ones you would like to dive deeper in. But as soon as I read it, I was like straight away. I had 10 new questions. So I was like, okay, well if it is 60 grand in guarantees, but you've said you've sold out half or three quarters of your shows, where's the back end of that we just discussed? Like where's that? And then if your tour costs are 90,000, is that just because everything's more expensive now? The bus driver, the fuel, and everything in between, Brexit, or is it because the bus is state of the art and the crew's top notch? We've got every right. You've got every right as an artist to do, but is that the case? Because it's one of those things that doesn't marry up as well. That you're a bit like if you're doing 500 cap clubs and we've got an estimation of how much that fee would be, and then you're going to get money because it's sold out as well. Like, and that's at that level. I'd be like, surely there is a bit more money in the pot. And then the other question that was flagged up for that was like, if her tour goes into profit, she has to pay management. So was there a situation where management are working for free until the tour goes into profit? I didn't understand that bit either.
I think that'll be the management are commissioning on like record deals and publishing and all that sort of stuff, but they only commission on the live side if it makes a profit, which is not
Okay,
the case with all managers. So some managers would be taking cuts
straight
on
away.
all straight away. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So, aye, it's a bit like it's rough out there. It's rough out there. I mean, I had a chat with Mark for We Lost the Sea, and I mean, they basically go out, they fly out of Australia trying to keep the losses to a minimal. They don't even think about breaking even or making money. They fly out Australia, like, can we get back into Australia and only have lost 8 grand between us? That's a result, you know what I mean? It's like, it's pretty fucking horrific when you think about it like that. But it's just the truth. And unless you're going to get more fans out there buying the records and going to those kind of type of shows, it's rough.
And
So
because it's no more or less a legitimate job than being a promoter, it's all being a tour manager or anything. Just because the artist looks like it's the most fun job, which it no doubt is at times, it's still a legitimate job that they should be paid for and shouldn't have to lose money for. But I think the music. I mean, look, this is complicated. It's deeply complicated. But obviously, the music industry has changed a huge amount with streaming. Basically, you used to sell in 1991. You used to sell lots of records and make lots of money from records, and now you don't. So the pressure on live is much higher. That is
yeah,
a huge
and that
simplification of
keeps
it.
getting passed down as well, because who's at the other end that's always asked to pick up the bill? The fan. So then the artist or the promoter's like, all right, you know what, if it cost me £10 to make a t-shirt now, it used to cost me £3 to make a t-shirt, the merch is going to have to be 25 or 30, and the fan's like, fuck, so I'm the guy who has to pay £30 for this t-shirt that used to be a tenner. And then the vinyl, I saw somebody the other day as well say, oh, I would quit into vinyl, but vinyl's just £30 now. It's just accepted that's a
Well,
price for vinyl. And like, that's a fan again. It's a bit like, aye, promoters are moaning they're not making any money. The artists are moaning they're not making any money. And that's legitimate concerns. But I'm the fan that used to be able to go to a gig for 40 quid and come back away with a t-shirt, a vinyl and my gig ticket. And now it's 100.
sure. And the whole point of this, actually, one of the points of the Observer article is about, it's in the headline, it's the fleecing of fans. And this is the weird position we find ourselves in as promoters, is that you're like, the promoters are the evil guy in this situation. But let's not forget that really the majority of shows are promoted by the big corporates, aren't they? The big multinational companies. Um, I don't think this is talking about, Jim down at the Dog and Duck or whatever in
Yeah.
Hull. It's a bigger level, but yeah, the promote. I mean, there's I don't know if it says where that 41% is coming from, but it's basically ticket markups. So I'm guessing it's like
Yeah, man, because it
Ticketmaster
was
essentially.
it was the co-op live was like it was Massive Attack were playing, and it was like 41% more. So it was like 15, 16% booking fee in your ticket. Then there was a servicing charge, transaction fee, venue something, and then there was a supplement on top of it. It was just New York Co-op Live. By the time you were done, your fucking ticket was another 40% on top of what the face value was. Now, firstly, that's shocking. And then it's sad that MD's been asked to pay it. But as a promoter, I took that information on and we said, okay, let's put tickets on sale for 5%. No one does 5% booking. Let's do it the way you come and back us before we announce any bands. You can have it 5%. Then somebody, or a few folk, again, never quite understood what I meant. When I said, look, no one cared. And they said, "Oh, well, I bought my ticket. I cared." Like, I know, but what I'm saying is, I didn't see one mention of it. We were going out and saying, "This is 5%. This is something that's affecting the industry. This is what we're doing to combat it. Support us." And no one. People said, "I'm looking forward to the lineup. Love Damnation. I'll always buy blind." Lots of support. I'm not saying that no one cared about Damnation. No one cared about the fact that we reduced booking fee to 5%. No one. I never saw one comment across any platform. So it's a weird one as well, because you feel that you make it, and that was a that was a wee bit of hassle, because when we were going to schedule, like, we haven't done tickets at 5% before, so we need to make sure that the system's going to accept it. Like, computer says no, they're like, don't be stupid. Who fucking puts out tickets with 5% booking fee? And it took us a wee bit more planning with scheduled than I thought it would. I thought it'd just be quite a simple fix. So, aye, it's not that I'm disappointed, but I'm not whining about it. I'm just saying, look, you can make the efforts to go away, and it doesn't seem to like excite
But,
fans when you
but one
see
of
that.
the No, but one of the frustrations of like modern life is that the nuance is lost. So in the kind of scrolling world, scroll, 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 you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to read this post. Yeah, Damnation, and now, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, well, yeah, I've already got my ticket. Cool. Or I haven't got my ticket. I'm going to buy it or whatever. And then I'm on to the next scroll. It's like uh, the nuance is often lost. Now you've got a chance on something like the Damnation forum to retain a bit of that. but it's hard, man. It's
Aye.
hard.
I mean, listen, 20 years in journalism, I understand what gets a headline. 41% or 5, I get it. Right? I'm just saying, I thought there might have been a little bit more traction with that. Like, it's ultimately, from a promoter as well, it was a marketing move in my behalf. It's like, I can just make the tickets a bit cheaper. And I can, like, the money can come for, you can rob Peter to pay Paul. But that was a way to do it. Like, okay, it doesn't always need to be that. You don't just have to accept the fact that so it's like you support us here, and I will, between us and Skiddle, we'll lose some money at the other end. But it was just like it never really, it never gained any traction. Not even one wee sort of social media warrior to be like, I've been fighting this fight against booking fees for 15 years, and I'm supporting you, Damnation. Not a single comment. So, aye. To be fair, I'm not even moaning about it. I'm just like, I'm just acknowledging the fact that there was so much said about that 41% that I'd expected some sort of recognition at the other when you're trying to keep it to. I mean, I think you could have went out and said no booking fee, and people went, "Aye, okay, still book my ticket," and that's the end of it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We have,
Okay, good.
we have. This is going to be a more of a educational. Well, we hope anyway. We've got John Ronstrom. What's his title?
So John Rostron is the, I think, Chief Executive Officer of the Association of Independent Festivals. So he runs the AIF. So yeah, he's a lovely guy, very, very knowledgeable about lots of different areas of the music industry. I think it's going to be a really, yeah, it's going to be a good
He's going to
chat.
come on and depress the life out of us with new stats of festivals that are struggling and festivals that are going to struggle in future. So we won't do questions this one because it'll end up. No doubt we'll have a bit of a chat with the big man. Don't want it to be a 3 hour podcast. Try to keep to that 90 minutes where we can. So just a quick shout to the Kofi. Thanks to everyone who's stuck with it. It seems to be finding its feet. I don't know. Let's give it another couple of weeks, then we'll make a decision one way or the other. Last week we did ask Ross Atkinson what he wanted. He hasn't been in touch yet. I will chase you, Ross, to find out what you're after. Let's get someone else out, and we'll make it a double for next week. And that user is D. No surname. So D, get in touch with us too. We'll get some sorted for you guys next week. Quick shout out to both our sponsors, Lou's Brews. You know the drill by now. Go and get yourself some lovely hot sauces. lousbrews.co.uk. Pod 15 is the code. His Black Friday deal will now be done. So if you missed out on that, take advantage of the Pod 15. Our other sponsor is Mel Eora. So I misspelled Mel Eora, did I? I was in a COVID induced state, and James did not help me out at all
Yeah, I
last
didn't
week.
know when you were spelling something. I had to actually check it. Oh, he's gone. Do you want me to spell it for you while
Please,
you
please,
cough?
make sure we get this.
Meliora. Meliora.
As in the Ghost album. If you are a small independent festival, maybe we'll get a lot of those independent festivals listed in this episode, considering that's going to be the topic. And you're after an affordable app to drag yourself into the 2025, then go and check out meliora.events. They are a slick operation, but also an affordable one. So thank you to those guys for their support. Shall we get into it then, James?
Let's do it.
Well, that's enough of the pleasantries and fun and games, James. Let's get properly miserable about the death of festivals and why we need the government support. Introducing our guest of the day, John Rostron. I managed to pronounce that right. I've got a bit of reputation for shitty pronunciations.
That's perfect. Thank you, Gav. Thank you, and thank you both for having me on.
John, set the table. Tell us a wee bit about yourself, and then we'll get into the how dire the situation is.
Um, so currently, yeah, I'm the Chief Executive Officer. Sounds lofty, doesn't it? Of the Association of Independent Festivals, not-for-profit trade association, set up originally in 2008 by 5 independent festivals who got together in a pub and were chatting about what their problems were. And guess what? They had a lot more in common than divided them, and that slowly became a trade association. And they put money in and employed a member of staff, and that's slowly grown. I took over it 2 years ago. We had 93 festivals as members when I took over, and we've now gone up to we're sitting at about 145 now.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. So that's really good for lots of good and bad reasons, which we'll come to. But for me, I mean, my background, I've always worked in music. Music's my passion, and I've managed to make it a job. A big part of my life was as a promoter, freelance promoter, ran my own little company or freelance, based in Cardiff, putting on bands in pubs and clubs, and then some of them would get bigger and go up all the way to the arena. So you'd make your money at what this feels like. You don't make any money in the small venues, but you make your money as you move up, and you use that to book more bands. So I do that, but I set up a multi-venue music festival called Soon, which is Welsh. It's the Welsh word for sound. In 2007, with my friend Hugh Stevens, who's also you know him as a radio DJ, and so we ran that, which is how I first met AIF. I saw them on a poster in a train station. Was like, oh, I'll go along and join. So I joined AIF. Back then there was like less than 20 festivals, but I really got a lot out of being in a room with other people who were doing well. They all ran greenfield site festivals, but like you get a lot out of just chatting with people. So that was my first encounter with AIF. But I gave everything up. I got really disillusioned with the music industry.
You get disillusioned with promoting? How could that possibly happen, John? I feel like we're almost 50 episodes into why are me and James still doing it? So
yeah, I just got So by 2018, so I packed everything in, sold it all up, and thought I'd left the music industry. Tried to leave. Well, did leave really for quite a while, and then slowly found my way back in. And here I am. So a bit disillusioned, but doing something about it.
Is there anything in particular? Obviously, the disillusionment of promoters is the bread and butter of this podcast, and why people enjoy it so much. Was anything in particular that was just a bit like, you know what, enough's enough. I can't really be dealing with that. I'm not buying 200 towels. I mean, what was it that just set you off? That was like, okay, it's not for me anymore.
There was particular things. I was losing a lot of bands. So I was doing bands in small venues, and they'd rise up, and then I'd quite often lose them as they went to the arena. In Cardiff, there isn't an academy. So you would do shows up to like the Great Hall, as it was then. It was about 1,500. Tramshed had arrived, 1,000. There was Millennium Music Hall for a while, 1,000. So you get to that kind of level. And then they would leave and they'd go to Bristol, where there's an academy. And actually, that was the point you sort of lost them, because then they would go to whoever, to a DHP or someone who was around then. So and that was okay. But then it was getting to the point where there was one band. I'd put them on in like a pub, a little venue to like no one. They played my festival. They had a really good show in a festival, 110 capacity room. Didn't even set, that wasn't even full, but they did a brilliant show. And then I put them on in Club E Full Back with 200 and something tickets that sold out. And then I went to the Globe, which was 350. So at this point, 350, you begin to get a bit of money, but you're nowhere near repaid what you've lost. And then they went up to the Great Hall, and I'd lost. And the first I knew about it was announced it was being promoted by DHP. And I was gone. And that was happening again and again and again. And it was like, this is just crazy, right? Like, so that was that was one big chunk of me. Like, that was like, I can't be fighting, I've got to try and earn some money somewhere. And the agent, that particular agent, a couple of weeks later came to me with another one of his baby bands. It's like, why am I going to do that? And he wanted more money. Yeah. Like, why am I going to do that? So that was a big chunk. And the other part was, I was beginning to kind of go like, why some of this industry, why are we doing ticket counts? You talked about ticket counts the other week. Like, why are we doing it? Like every Monday, every Friday, like we're sitting there, we're booking shows, we're marketing shows, we're running the show. Sometimes we're the person with the band. And then the next morning we're doing ticket. You're chasing us for these ticket counts. Where's your inability to move? Like you said in a show, sometimes on a Monday morning, it's like 4, Friday, 4, 4, 5, and you're 6 months out. Right? So I spoke to some agents about it and just said, like, can we have a conversation about it? Like, just like, and they just shut it down.
Yeah.
Right. And but you know, that's not, there was one big agent that I went to, ran one of the big agencies. And I managed to have 15 minutes with him at the Great Escape. And he talked at me for 10 minutes about why ticket counts are important. And then I just said, yeah, but like, who does your ticket counts? And mostly actually in their companies, it's work experience people and interns with maybe one member, you know. So actually it doesn't, the cost base for them is quite low to do it. I was like, look, we've got promoters who just, there's a guy called Simon Bailey at the time. I'm going to name him, who's lovely. He now works at Crosstown. And he used to tell me about sitting in his underpants doing the ticket counts. Come on, we need to take the pressure off Simon Bailey.
Yeah.
So he was open to change, but some people are just not open to change.
No,
yeah, it's the industry's got its way of working, hasn't it? And some of the stuff you just don't know why it started, but it ain't going to change. Were you still involved with Soon Festival in 2018 as well, or did you get out of that?
Yeah, no, I handed it. Yeah, so all of it went over. Yeah, so I gave. It was all passed to Clubby for back. So it's quite hard to get out of promoting, I have to say, because I decided maybe a year before I'd had the sort of moment like, I think I need to get out of it. But how do you get out? Because you've got shows booked for a year.
Yeah.
So what do you do? And it's quite hard. Like if you just stop, then all of the, you know, like, and you might, you know, you're worried about the bands and you've got a relationship with people. And even though there was a whole load of people I was happy never to speak to again, there's a whole load of people I really like in the industry. I might see them again and I don't want to let them down. How do you let it go? Quite hard. And I'd had an approach from somebody who wanted to buy the company, and that had been a part of a trigger, but I didn't want to sell to them because they weren't, for me, it was really important that shows in Cardiff were done by people in Cardiff and Wales who understood the locality and everything and the people, and not a sort of national, you know, it wasn't a national, yeah, but it was somebody coming from outside. So yeah, I just had about 6 months later, or even longer, I was on holiday and I suddenly went, oh, Clubby for back. Like they would want it. Maybe they would want it. And I texted Gitto who ran it. And I think he was on holiday and he was like, yeah, that would be great because they were trying to develop and do more shows themselves because independent promoting is hard and they were losing promoters, but they still want the shows. So, and also soon for them, they love it. For Adam, their head booker, first was an intern with us. We used to call him the laminator because he used to do all the laminating. And he's got a brilliant set of ears and he's a brilliant individual. So it made sense to bring it. And that was our kind of home. That was the heart of the festival. So it made absolute. And if you're promoting, you've said this as well, you know, like being able to sort of watch bands through the shows and the audiences and connect that to a festival opportunity and back, that synergy is really, that's what, if you're an artist manager or an artist, that's what you want. And if you can have that as a promoter, that's great too on the ground. And so we handed it to them and they've done a brilliant job with it. It's great. So we're nothing to, me and Hugh both stepped out. But we watch it like, I don't have children, but it feels like children that we're really proud of.
Yeah. So without being too idealistic or sounding too idealistic, you leave the promoting side of the game a bit fed up with certain aspects of the industry, but still with a passion for music, which you can clearly hear when you're talking about it just now in 2024. So when the AIF thing came up, was that like, I'm going to try and make a change, however small or big, to this industry in some other way? And if so, what changes does that make? Tell us a bit about the role currently and where you're at before we get to the misery part of it and everybody, all the festivals collapsing. Tell us about the positive side of it.
There's loads of positives. You know, the independent festival promoters are sometimes they're one person, very small teams, tend to be based somewhere in and around where their festival is. All these challenges, isn't it, of running an event, just such a big thing as you know how to do it. So just having other people you can connect with and like kind of almost like be in the pub with, like you guys have connected, can just be like, oh, it can be such a relief. You know, it's not necessarily complaining about things. It's just like, how's it going? How are you doing that? Could be so good for your mental health, right? And to all do this because you love music And the problem is that the music industry eats away at that love of music, right? And you don't want, and that's really challenging for people. So stuff that kind of helps you be positive, focus, feel supported, feel that there's other people out there like that with you, and then helping each other too, which is what they do a lot of in the network. So we just try and create that space digitally. There's a Slack channel where some members are. We have a WhatsApp group where some members are. We do online member meetings. We do in-person events. A big part of it is just all those people chatting and saying, how do you do? I mean, it can be all kinds of things. It can be somebody this year was saying, I've never gone on early bird sale before, but we're going to do it. How does that work? We're thinking about having female urinals. Like, what's your experience of it? What do you do about this problem? Lots of that, and it helps people get things done.
It makes total sense because I get a lot of that from other promoters because I think because I've got that voice, it's quite friendly and open, and I sound like someone who's willing to work with other events. Whereas a lot of occasions like promoters would rather see other events die off, which is a wee bit sad. So you're right. When I actually think about it, like question how I've got an agent here asking for 50% of the deposit 8 months in advance. Is that normal? Like, how much do you need to? I've got this rider for a band that's a £400 band, but the rider's £350 in itself. I mean, legally, where am I here? Do I need to provide this over? And you just get, it's like this whole podcast, just the chancellors and the whole sort of Wild West scenario you get with it. It's a bit like you get some people like, am I supposed to get this? How does this make sense if a band's costing £400 and a rider's going to cost me 350 on top of that? And will they cancel if I don't? And you're right, actually. Now I think about it, it's weird because Damnation isn't part of that association, and not because I've given it any thought one way or the other. I've just never.
No,
I was wondering when the elephant in the room was going to come up.
I know, as well.
I'm glad you brought it up.
And we're going to sit here and pretend. No, you should join. You should join. But listen, I'll after we're done with this, I'll go away and look at it and give it some thought because you're right. I've probably just created my own association by pestering other people and having those chats.
Oh.
If there's an avenue to explore that further, it sounds great. You are involved, James. Yes.
Yeah. The thing I would say is what you and John are just talking about is 50% of why the AIF is great for us, and the other 50%, because talking to people and other festivals is brilliant and really helpful, but the other 50% is when there's something massive going on, which kind of works as a good segue into where we're going with this chat. But if you go back and you go through COVID, and even before COVID, there was a big argument with PRS that went on, which the AIF won on behalf of the festivals, and we saved thousands of pounds a year based on that. During COVID, we got help with our grants. Millions of pounds came into the independent sector because of the AIF's help, including 2000 Trees and Arctangent. And just the navigating of the madness of COVID was a big part of the AIF. And now we move on to the sort of new crisis, which John will talk us through. And I'm like, the AIF is like vitally important to the whole sector, I think. So yeah, it's I would recommend any festivals listening to join it. Definitely. John didn't ask me to say that. John, talk us through why we're here today.
Yeah, so let's get to the bad news. I mean, you did a really good report on we issued a statement, a few statements this year early, about the level of cancellations with festivals and what we were looking at. And you did a podcast earlier this year when we'd hit the 21 mark, which is about April, I think. And we said then, 21 festivals already cancelled, postponed, or called time this year, 36 in total last year. So we were already at 21 by April. And I was saying at the start of the year, like at this rate, it could be 100. We're now on 74 festivals that have cancelled, postponed, or called time this year. So we're past double the amount from last year. And that is an extraordinarily bad figure. And what's really bad is that the primary reason, lots of these events are successful in as much as there's lots of people that go, they've kind of quite established, they're not trying something new. They know what they're doing and they're doing it well or pretty well. It's the pressure, the economic pressure of running those events, which which is kind of big part, those rising supply chain costs have eaten into the margin. The supplier terms mean that you're paying for close to 100% of your event before you open the gates. So you've got to try and find that money. And you talked about budgets and stuff. I put something into the members chat the other day because I'm writing an op-ed piece at the moment. If you're doing 10,000 people in the greenfield space, it might be 1.2 to 2 million pounds that you've got to find as an independent. And so that sort of cash flow issue, as well as those super tight margins, borrowing money is debt, and all of that's it's really hard as an independent festival. And then the other part for me that's looming is the role of the transnationals, the Live Nation Festival Republics. So they have really deep pockets, of course, so they don't fall over. They can ride these things in and out, so you don't get a sense of like how are they actually doing. Occasionally they close something. They closed one of their camp festivals for next year, but they don't tell you why. But then also what they're doing in terms of locking out artists, distorting those market fees for the artists. And you've talked a lot about artist fees and the role that they have to play in that, as well as kind of eating into that space for the independents and what that's doing. So those two big pressures together are the primary reason. Just because when we put these things out, if it gets written about in the newspapers, and you read the comments, so you're in the Times and they're like, well, market forces, it's not market forces. So the example I come to is a festival called Valley Fest, which is down near you, isn't it, James?
Yeah.
They ran this year, 11,500 people on site, brilliant weather, the highest F&B spend, food and beverage spend per head they've ever had, creatively the best event that they've ever had, the only place you can see Arcadia outside of Glastonbury. But they lost a sponsor in about April or May, nothing political, just a small company that couldn't do it. So that then you can't get another sponsor at that point. So you've got to look at your ticket sales. And they're effectively about 450 ticket sales shy then of what they need to break even. And that means they're not going to go ahead next year because they're like, well, if we come out next year, we've got a budget and go on sale straight away. And they were looking at it going, so if next year we sell 11,500 tickets, we have great weather, and we have the highest F&B spend we've ever had, and we have a creative event, but we still are short, like where's the space?
Yeah,
and so
for listeners for that Valley Fest as well, they might have looked at that 5 years ago when the cost infrastructure was half the price. The band fees were 25 to 50% less. So like, even though the numbers going up, 11,500 people in any field is an amazing result. It's like the costs involved in actually making that event or any of these events happen now are astronomical compared to what they were even pre-COVID.
Yeah, and you're talking, and 450 tickets sounds like not a lot, doesn't it? But if it's 200 quid a ticket, that's nearly 100 grand. And you go into 100 grand loss one year and then do the same again the next year. And it starts to,
450 tickets
very quickly.
It's exactly that. It's a couple of hundred quid a ticket plus whatever the person was going to spend on site. You put that together. It doesn't sound like a lot, does it? And it's not a lot, but that's how tight everything is. And so I use them as a really good example of like, that's not market fail. Like, it's not like they've sold 30% of their tickets, and we're not going to defend somebody that's festival is like that. We want to defend the people who are doing a good job and are just caught by the work, the environment.
In terms of, can you give other examples? What I don't want to do or what I hate, especially when you listen to, you put it in the news report, these vague market forces, or we don't have examples. Is there other events? Because people can get followed at the trap. 75 events have collapsed, but that'll all be the local one there in the pub that was badly organised by an inexperienced promoter. That isn't the case, though. There is serious, well-established, well-organised festivals like Valley, as you say, that have gone under. Is there any other examples that people might be aware of from this year alone?
Yeah, well, a really good example is Field Manoeuvres. 1,500 capacity came out of, so, during COVID, as wasn't going to happen during COVID. So was always saying to its customers, if you don't think we might be back, we might be back. So when they knew they were going to be back in 2022, I think it was, they were saying to people, if you can't make it, you can recycle your ticket. So they'd resold their tickets back out to people. So that in their mind, they were sold out, 1,500 people, really sold out. And they went into their show with all those rising supply chain costs. But they were like, we're still all right. We've sold out. A third of the people didn't turn up, right? And so suddenly, if a third of the people don't turn up, they've got their ticket money, but they haven't got their on-site spend. So I can't remember what the amount was that they lost, but I know they ran a crowdfunder because I was not doing anything then, and they got in touch with me, and I helped them set up a crowdfunder, and we raised about £40,000, which was enough to balance the books and give them enough to get into the next year. But then you're running on fumes now. So they were going to end. Now they were kind of bad news, good news story, because they then said that this year was going to be their last. And so they've sold out and they ran this year, but they've actually come up the back of it. And what they've said publicly, I think, or certainly privately, is after 10 years, we think we know what we're doing. So we're going to try again in 2025.
Good for them.
But that's how precarious, and it's an amazing party. And that's how precarious things are. And you talk about it being a gamble and all that. There's an element of lunacy there. If you know Henry, the guy who is one of the three people who runs it, I mean, Henry just ran from West Wales to London. So you know the level of lunacy involved in running that event, and that's enough to make them think they can come back. But that was on an edge.
Good.
And these are the things that you just can't see.
No, I think one thing that's really important to dispel that is that it isn't like, as Gav was kind of alluding to, it isn't these aren't nobody festivals that don't have a track record. Like Nostock went this year. I've been to Nostock a couple of times over the years, been going for, I don't know, 25, 30 years. Yeah. And I was at Valleyfest last year. I was stood in their kids area sending videos to our team being like, this is the best kids area I've ever been to. I was with my 6-year-old, and it's like, Valleyfest is great. And it's like such a shame festivals like Nostock and Valleyfest, because once they're gone, I mean, it's pretty hard to come back from, isn't it?
Yeah, Nostock, a great example. I think 27 years, started as a party, run on a farm by Pete Nosworthy, hence the name Nostock. They build, his son Rob is an amazing joiner, carpenter, and you've seen it, they build all the infrastructure slowly. It's amazing. And it's like nothing you've ever seen. It's such an amazing playground. But yeah, though, coming out of COVID, the costs, trying to make it all happen. And I was with him one time, where also there's an agent on the phone asking for more money, and that push too, it's those pressures that aren't really needed.
Yeah.
But they managed to take control of their destiny and said, we're going to make next year our last one. So at the end of 2023. So they had a whole year, and lots of people came back. They sold out, and they had a really good event, and it was very emotional. I got a video of Pete playing on stage, Nos playing on stage, and they said goodbye. But yeah, it's a really great event. It's an amazing event, and it's no more.
Another sort of misconception of people who maybe don't have sight of the whole picture the way you do is there's just too many events. There's too many events propping up, and at the end of the day, they're all sort of cannibalizing each other. Is there any truth in that whatsoever, or is that just a lazy sort of, it's easy just not to blame yourself as a ticket buyer for not supporting an event?
Yeah, I mean, broadly, I think I'm very data driven and evidence driven, right? So ticket sales. So let's look at the facts. The Valleyfest example, right? I mean, it's not like, if how many festivals would need to go down for her to have sold the extra 450 tickets? Is that really the reason, or is it the fact the sponsor pulled out? And suddenly that the pressures of it don't add up. Who should be running an event where you need 100% of your sales to get through? It's crazy. There's another really established event of ours, 20,000 cap. Prior to COVID, they roughly 80 to 85% of their tickets they would needed to have sold to then get into profit. They now need to sell 97.5% of their tickets. And they're questioning, and they do sell it, and they sell out, and they're questioning whether they're going to carry on, because at that point, they're like, why are we that's so pressured, and we're not doing the good things that we wanted to do outside the event. But to go back to the number of events, 96 that we counted that went during the pandemic, 36 last year, 74 now. That's 206, I believe, in total. Gone, right? And not been replaced. There's been a handful of new things. Ticket sales more generally, they are down in festivals, but they're only down 4%. And if you think about everything else that's going on in the world and people spending, right, there's nothing catastrophic there. If you look at, Music Venues Trust at Venues Day said that the number of shows, I think, or possibly ticket sales or both, is down 37% in grassroots music venues. Now that's a crisis. But 4% says there's demand.
Yeah.
So I don't think that there's too many events because the data doesn't suggest that. The appetite's there.
And we're certainly seeing that in the rock world. I mean, the rock and metal world, I think, is in rude health with all the people I speak to. Bloodstock, Damnation, Arctangent, 2000 Trees, Outbreak. Everyone's doing well at the moment, but all those other pressures that you talk about, like the pressure on your costs, really are there. And yeah, it really rings true when you're talking about festivals trying to run. They've got to sell 97% of their tickets. It's bonkers, isn't it? So you're going to take on the 2 million risk for the couple of percent on the top if it sells out.
Yeah, and there's people who will exit now who can do the sales, but they're like, I got into this to throw a party and have fun, and now I'm not having fun. Yeah. And there's some other people who run it for charitable aims or other purposes, so that the festival is sort of, maybe to raise money. There's a member of ours who's let's stick with real examples. Their purpose is to raise money for good causes. They sell well. They've been long established. They've always given money to good causes. This year they can't give any money to good causes. So why are they going to, so why would we continue? And that's a really great event. And I can't name it, but it's really pioneering. It does amazing things, and they might go. Right. And that shouldn't be the way.
Yeah.
I mean, touching on James's point about that, because so it's two promoters, one pod, and the two promoters on this pod are in decent health at the minute. Damnation's done with best part of 2,000 tickets without a single band announced, and it looks like today's announcement has gone down really well also. And then James is looking Trees, 4-day tickets sold out, Bloodstock sold out. I mean, record time. Yeah. We don't know the download figures, but presumably that's doing fine. And Outbreak appears to be doing fine. So listeners to this podcast may be like, right, hold the bus. He's putting out this promo saying that your events are selling out, or they have sold out, because it's a fact. The tickets aren't available, and now we're listening to this podcast saying best part of 100 festivals going under. So that's quite a jarring sentence. So what is it that's happening elsewhere? That is it just the rock scene in itself is in quite good health? What's the difference between the markets?
No, definitely. I mean, the rock scene seems to be doing really, really well, and you're the experts in that. And I keep hearing it's because, I don't know, download. You guys are just smashing it, and download. Yeah, you're doing the job. The independents are doing the job, and you've got the offer, and it's that's what I keep hearing. And that in that case, the transnational is not capable of doing the job that people want, and that's what I'm hearing. And so. And that always why I'm so upset for independents, because independents are always the best. They're just better, like you've got better ears, you create better, you think about the audience more, you care more, you really listen. You're not a big corporate machine. And, I know there's a room for some of those big shows, but when push comes to shove, like, what do I want to eat every day? I want to eat quality food, not McDonald's. Right. So, I like a McDonald's every now and then, right? So I hear that. I think, yeah. So that space seems to be really great, and I wonder whether historically it's because some of the transnationals sort of hoovered that up a bit, and now there's a space for at the end of the day, if the audience aren't being satisfied, you've got all these people who love the music and they want to go where it's a great experience and it's great music. They're going to start looking. If it's not being offered over there, they're going to go somewhere where it is. And I think that you're offering it really, really well. Across our membership, we've got lots of festivals that are selling really well and doing really well. We've got some record sellouts. So Kendall Calling just sold out in a record amount of time. They're 20 years old, I think now. And they've sold out in a record amount of time. And and that's amazing, you know. So we're seeing quite good things, but it's just so challenging running it. And if you don't sell out early, you know the advantages of selling well early and selling out early, like what it does in terms of like, now I don't have to focus on the marketing. You claw some money back maybe, but also you human resource. It's like, that's done. It's like you talked, I think, in one of your podcasts about it's so much easier if you're working with the suppliers that you know. I think you kept talking about Stinky Pete. I don't know if you still work with Stinky Pete.
We do.
But like, if you know Stinky Pete, so Stinky Pete knows you and he knows where to go and he knows where to turn up. And then you can just sort of focus on the things that's a problem. And running an independent festival, or any festival, there's always going to be problems. So you want as much as your time to be able to deal with those, and keep those to a minimum and have as much that's okay as possible, which is why people buying tickets and you selling well allows you to then focus on the other areas where there might be an unexpected challenge, right? And the lots of festivals don't, unfortunately, have that privilege. You know, they might sell, they're coming out the blocks really well. We're seeing lots of people do really high early birds and really high on sales. So, but then it's that last yard, that's the hard yard. And that's unfortunately like the yard where the money is now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that was Damnation's. We came out the blocks last year. I was like, by even June or July, we're talking to Paul who organised the event. It's like there was no situation where Damnation wouldn't have sold it this year. I mean, going by any sales data we've done in any year previously, and we didn't get there in the end. I mean, it was a very successful Damnation. It was a busy Damnation this year, but it was like treacle for the last 8 weeks. Where back in 2012, 13, 14, 15, we could sell half our ticket allocation in the last 8 weeks, and it was like, I mean, some days you're like, you're tapping your screen to make sure it wasn't actually broken. It was like, what's happening? Where's the ticket sales for today? So I mean, great again. We've got these incredible blind birds, and now it'll be early bird ticket sales. But again, we could be looking at the same situation that you just go into, and then post summer, it just doesn't really go anywhere, and that's a new trend that we're looking at without really any explanation. Like, why
Well,
would that change? Why is the ticket buying habits different?
no, that's a really good point. So that, like, the audience behavior and ticket buying behavior has changed, and there's some things that we can understand, and there's some things we don't. And a festival that went down this year, so I won't name them, but prior to Christmas, they were 20% up on their forecast tickets. So they were like, "Yeah, we're good." And they came to Festival Congress in February, going, "Yeah, we've had that was great. January's been strange, but hey." And then from that conversation onwards, their sales just went off a cliff and they cancelled, right? And the festival is gone, and they have no idea what went on, because they've got a history, they've got a relative history of sales. They kind of know what things might look like and when people might respond. And then they were completely taken by surprise prior to Christmas in a really positive way, and then everything, and they threw everything at it, and they were like, "Well, I just got no idea."
And I mean, you're making my heart beat fast, and not in a good way, because that's exactly what happened at Trees last year, apart from the end bit, because we went fast out the blocks, and then January and the middle of February, we were like, what's going on? And then it came back again, and we had a really good year. So it stopped and then went again. But as the person sat watching, like tapping your screen, as Gav says, watching the tickets, you never know when it's coming back, but you know that you've got £2 million on the line, and that's absolutely terrifying for every festival organizer listening to this will understand that, is that even when you're ahead, you don't actually know what next month looks like. I know that, well, it's currently the 2nd of December. We won't sell many tickets in the next 2 months, because it tends to be a bit sticky for us over Christmas and January, and then we go again in February, and it's I mean, you've really got me there. So
Sorry.
So what sort of plans the AIF got? How do we deal with the situation we find ourselves in? We've lost 200 festivals, more than 200 since the start of COVID. How do we keep the industry alive? What's the plan?
The big ask for us. So we think that the festivals have done everything that they can, right? So the festivals, the suppliers, everybody's trying to help everybody through. broadly, mostly. I'll caveat that a bit, but like broadly, everyone's trying to help each other through, and they're all trying to deal with it, and they're trying to sort deals out and trying to make it happen. It's the world around them that is out of their control that's changed. So those supply chain costs, cost of living, whatever the other things were, pandemic, Brexit. So that world is still new, and I kind of say, look, it's been 2 years since the pandemic and Brexit. We've been open for 800 days if you run a hairdresser or a kebab shop, but festivals have been open for like 8 days, right? So we need so all of those other industries and everybody's been hit, but they've had time to, if you went to your supermarket and your banana, the cost of your banana wasn't meeting the cost of supply, you could change it the next day or the next week or the next month. Well, festivals haven't had that time, right? So let's give them some time, and that's to the government, the people that can kind of control the environment to a certain degree. And the big thing is for us is being, well, look at VAT. Right, VAT is 20%. It's really high compared to other European countries, for a start. But also, instead of us scratching around trying to find a 0.5% here and there, you've got the gift of that 20%. You lowered it to 5% during the pandemic. Could you temporarily lower it again, just on ticket sales, to 5% for the next few years, to enable us? That's the space that we need to do all the things that I've talked about. And our evidence shows that nearly all the festivals that have fallen, not all of them, but nearly all of them, would not have fallen if VAT was lower. Valleyfest have said they would have carried on this year if VAT was lower. They would have still made a loss, but it would have been manageable. So we're like, why don't you do that? And the government, we've been pushing really hard since April last year. Obviously, we've got a new government now. We knew from off the block, Rachel Reeves came in and said there'll be no VAT cut. So we weren't expecting it in the budget. But there was this CMS inquiry into grassroots music venues, this culture, media, sports inquiry. We made a submission on behalf of festivals, because festivals are in the ecosystem with grassroots music venues. And we have loads of members who run festivals in multi-venues too. And that inquiry said to government, we think you should look at remodeling VAT in the grassroots music ecosystem. We thought, great. The government replied the other week and said, no, we're not even going to look at it. So the door isn't closed, but the government are trying to push the door back. And that's incredibly disheartening. So that's making it worse. So that, because that to us was that's their gift. That's something that they could do.
Do you feel that is because they politically don't want to have to make that case with every other industry and be on the front page of the Daily Mail saying they've cut VAT for hippies in the field?
There's a couple, basically lots of different sectors ask for lower VAT, so they don't want to have to defend why they're giving it to one rather than the other. So I sort of see it, and they also don't want what they call like an unfunded thing. So in theory, they've got to fund that from somewhere. But my argument is, you could like just exploring lower VAT is a commitment to nothing except explore it. And you can take a Valleyfest example and go, would you rather have 5% of something than 20% of nothing? And you could explore it to being just independent festivals, just below a certain size and so on. So you still, in the sector, the majority of your revenue is going to come from larger events or, whatever. So there's lots of things they could do. So just go and look at it. I do understand why they've said no. I don't accept it.
So still hopeful that you can persuade them otherwise?
Well, so yes. I mean, I've got to keep going. So we're looking at other options, as well. So the government, if you're happy for me to explore them, the government team say we want radical policies, and so the other thing I've been exploring is a universal basic income for festival promoters. So our evidence shows, I don't know, see, what's your face now? Our evidence shows that the festival manager, for want of a better word, earns between about 30 and 40,000 pounds, right, on average. It actually turns out that role is very complicated, funded in all kinds of ways, and most people have loads of other jobs too, right? But it sort of sits in that place. And currently, there is an Arts Council England supporting grassroots music fund that we helped lobby to get to festivals, so festivals can go and get that fund thanks to lobbying from AIF. And that sits at the most you can get is about £40,000, but it's a heavy application process. It's competitive. And we're like, if you just give a promoter 40 grand, right? No questions asked, or maybe a couple of questions. You can take all these festivals. They will, you know what promoting's like. If you give them the money, they won't have a second job, and they'll focus on their event, and they'll still throw the dice, and they'll still put on shows. Doesn't mean their shows, they'll take the risk. And we're like, that's a really good use of money, right? And let's go back to Valley Fest. I don't know what Harrod, the manager, got, but if you went to them and gave them 40 grand, she earned more, you could pay her more. She earned less, it's a lucky day. But they would put on their show. And that's a £1.6 million spend show with 11,500 people and all those artists and all those things. And you as a festival organizer having a wonderful time with your kids, right? And it costs 40 grand. And governments like a thing called return on investment. And normally the metric is 12 to 1. So for every pound we put in, we want 12 back. I'm not very good at maths. You're an ex-accountant. But 40 grand to get 1.6 million back, that's a really good ROI, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're talking to them about that. We're saying you can do a pilot, and we're trying to raise some funds to do a pilot. If the government won't do it, we're going to just try and make it happen ourselves and show them it works. So if anyone's got 40 grand, send me some money.
I don't look at
Welcome.
Give 40 grand to us, we'll not give them you. It's funny you make that point, because in my background in journalism, you'd have the local authority, the Dumfries and Galloway Council would organise or play a part in organising the car rally. And then the press release would come out afterwards to be like 1.6 million generated for the local economy, because they would do the factor of how many people, and it was never like the numbers weird. It was like 1,500 people came into the region and booked hotel rooms, ate in our restaurants, ate in our cafes, spent at our local shops. And the grants were coming out the ears of these people. It seemed to be a case of invest heavily in these events because look at what you're doing now. Something like, if you get 6,000 people going to Damnation, now, so let's say 1,500 of them are from Manchester. Everyone else is from elsewhere in the UK getting in. But there's nothing. All there is taxes upon taxes. You get your £100 ticket and the VAT is £20 off it, and the PRS are 4.2% off that. And then whatever you get left on the other side, they go, okay, there's corporation tax. And then, well, Gavin McAnally would like some money from the business. Oh, well, no, you've got your personal income tax. Stop it, like, fuck me, man. I've got like £8 left from my £100 ticket. And it's like, that car rally was just getting grants thrown at them. And then we see as well, like in European events, this is something I'd like you to talk or expand on. You go to Norway or Sweden, whatever, it seems to be that every one of their posters has 7 logos across the bottom of their local authority or government arts funding. And we know, because we talk in the industry, of that band that we can't afford to pay 50 grand because it would cripple us. They're just finding 2 of them and paying 50 grand per band because they've got so much funding. Is there ever any talk of why in Europe there is funding available for the arts as it pertains to us rock and metal events, but not in the UK? All there is taxes upon taxes.
Yeah, I think that my take on it is that broadly, prior to COVID, the industry as a whole was doing quite well. I'd say there was an area that definitely wasn't, which was grassroots music venues. But if you look at the journey of music venues, just how much shouting Mark and Bev had to do to get heard, in an industry that was doing very well. I think that's part of the problem is that we haven't had that join up because everybody's been out doing their thing. They're also very busy, but broadly they've been doing all right. That contributes to like trying to get a conversation around about an ecosystem and value and what that might mean. And you can see that happening at the moment with the conversations about a ticket levy in arenas, like trying to get those people into, we're very involved. I sit on the board of Live, which is the umbrella organization for live music in the UK, and watching those conversations unfold. And in some ways you think it should be a sort of slam dunk, like, yeah, we need to sort that out. We'll put £1 on our tickets. And then when you get into it, there's some of it is understandably a lot more complicated than you think, and some of it is like maybe gatekeeping, protectionism. And so if you've got that happening at an industry level, how do you convey that at a government level, right? And that's, I think you will begin to see that. And I think the Arena Levy is perhaps the gift in some ways, thanks to Mark and Bev at Music Venues Trust, that maybe we'll find some way, because once we can try and get that coherent conversation about value, then you can relay that in a way that government will go, okay, we need to support this. But you're quite, there's been a long disconnect, as we all know, in all kinds of ways, about how music is used intentionally or unintentionally to attract people to a village or a town or a place, and then they knock down the venue and they build flats, or you see it. I mean, Broadwick, in terms of dance music and so on, that they are a property developer who actually buy this, and they use all those drum sheds or whatever it might be. I don't know what the names of them are, to do these big warehousing, but effectively they're a property developer. Music's used in all those kinds of ways, and like you just said, like you can have a venue or a festival, particularly in a town that's really struggling to make money, but is the reason that everyone's paying for bed nights, hotels, taxis, restaurants, coming, staying, living. I originally moved to Cardiff because of the Manic Street Preachers, right? Because I'd read about them in NME. I was a Birmingham boy reading about this crazy band, and then got an offer at Cardiff. So that's where the Manic Street Preachers are sort of from. They're one of the first bands I saw when I arrived at uni.
Is that when they were still doing good albums?
Calm down, Gav. I don't know if you've. There's a dangerous tangent.
I haven't heard a bad word said about them.
Me neither. Me neither.
Sorry.
So yeah, all of those things that are, that music does, but the value might not be there for the event organizer, but everybody's feeling it, right?
So is the Arena Levy, is that that's a done deal now, or not?
No, that is a conversation for another part. It's where's it at is that the government have said that they want to see a blanket levy, a voluntary blanket levy. In other words, that the industry voluntarily agrees to putting it on every show above 5,500 capacity, fixed the venues and stadia. But then there's some, that's not happened, right? You can see it. You can see a handful of shows that are doing it, but the handful of shows is Music Venues Trust picking them off one by one. Understandably, music venues just to go, we got no time to wait. We want a blanket levy, and we want it done by the industry, but we haven't got time to wait. So we're going to get Coldplay, we're going to get Katy Perry, Enter Shikari, Well Done Rock Music. You were the first ones to do it, and they want that Enter Shikari model. That's complicated, but that's basically where does the money sit. But you've got some people who say it's not possible to have what they call a voluntary blanket levy, because they say it's competition law. So you've got two sides fighting that out. And then so some other people are saying, well, forget that. We want the government to come in and legislate. But there's some people, including Music Venues, just like, we don't want legislation, because legislation is going to take a long time. And then who's going to get the money? Like, we don't know. It won't come to the industry. It could go to anybody. How much will it be? How will it be administered? And in France, for example, I think there is an industry, there is a regulated legal government levy. I think it's 3.5%, but their administration costs, as somebody texted me the other day, I think it's 9 million euros to administer it. So you get onto all of that. So you've got a lot of this going on at the moment. I was trying to do it in a snapshot.
Sure.
And we're sitting in those meetings because we're part of Live, but we're sitting a little bit back because it really is primarily a conversation. Grassroots music venues, on the way that I talk about it, is they're on fire, but the torch is being lit under independent festivals. So we talk to Music Venues Trust a lot about this, because we see ourselves very much aligned with them, and we're heading in that same direction if there isn't help.
And they feel the same, do they? That we are aligned with them? Because it's quite. I was chatting to Bristol independent music venue owner the other day, and it felt to me like that the case. I had to make the case to that person that festivals were important because he was very, very music venue focused. Do you feel that it's a two-way thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's come about through having conversations. I think I don't, yeah, like I believe that you broadly, I try and stay in my lane. Like I know festivals, I don't pretend to try and, I know a bit about venues, but I defer all my expertise of that to Mark and Bev and Music Venues Trust because that's what they live and breathe.
Yeah.
And Mark showed me the same courtesy. So when they were talking last year about, or the start of this year about, sometimes they'd say the messaging might say we want to tick a levy on every venue and festival. I was like, oh, hang about, right? We got loads of festivals that were really struggling, and they engaged with me, and we had really good conversations about it. And and I explained the costs and how it worked. I said, look, a £500,000 site in 2019 costs you £900,000 to do now. And we had a conversation, and they were really good. And he basically said, oh yeah, we came to the conclusion that basically you can be doing up to maybe nearly 30,000 people in a field and still have the same problems as a grassroots music venue. And maybe beyond that, you start to look like an academy. So those numbers are quite shocking. I think some people be like, what, you can have 30,000 people in and it still be really hard. It's like, yes, right. But festivals are so different. And so to grassroots music venues. So Mark gets that and MVT get it. They're not calling on a levy on festivals, and neither are we. But I think if they were to, they'd say 30,000 people or more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and anecdotally as well, just for like, you think you go to a festival, be it Art Tangent, Damnation, Bloodstock, or anything in between, download, and you catch that band, and you're like, oh, I wasn't expecting to see this. I certainly wasn't going to pay my £15 to check out a band that I never knew. Now, I love them. What are you doing the next time? You're going to the 200 cap room, the 300 cap room, the 400 cap room. And I've done it. I've done it for 25 years. That's exactly like I go to a festival, I see a band that I'm interested. I've got a curiosity, but I'm ultimately not going to be going paying a gig ticket for them until I've seen or I've got some sort of like, oh, that I like this, and then I go to the gig. So I don't see, I don't see in any conversation how we think, oh well, the festival's going to be to the detriment of the next time any of those bands play in your nearby city. So aye.
No,
And,
100%. I
and do
mean, look,
not be chasing us for a couple of quid either, as we've made quite clear.
I mean, you run festivals. You know how many bands you can see in a single day at your festivals, right? And then how that would equate to night if you had to go and see all those bands on a night out. So they're amazing. That's why I love festivals, right? And you can drag your mates. You go, I've heard about this band, and if they like it, they fall in love, and if they don't, they just go to the bar. But it's much harder to get them to go to a grassroots music venue to see something that you like. But then, yeah, exactly like you say, if they do see someone by chance, by luck, whatever, and I say this all the way up, actually, I look at idols playing festivals going, yeah, why not? Because idols can only sell so many tickets in an arena right now. So they want to be a Glastonbury headliner. And to do that, you need to play festivals. You need to be in front of people I've heard of you on the radio, or you need to be dragged along. And that's how festivals are where you grow your live audience. And that goes back into grassroots music venues. And of course, the other way around. And then, the finances. Venues do their trade September to May, and festivals do their trade May to September. And those two things in terms of fees and opportunities, I mean, that's how it works. And that's what we want. We want both of them. I don't want to wait all year before I see live music. I want to be in venues, and I don't want to be in venues in the middle of the summer. I want to be outside, I want to be out and about.
Yeah. Okay. So we're kind of running out of time, but we're also not. So I don't want to rush you. Like, what else should we talk about? I mean, do we want to, you kind of lightly brushed against Live Nation a couple of times. We like to put the boot in heavier on this podcast. So
I'm fine. Yeah, James likes to set fire to Live Nation. I'm all good.
I've actually got a lawyer right now looking at an op-ed piece that I've written because for the first time, because I've written something, I need to run this by a lawyer before it goes out. So, and that involves me making comments about Live Nation because you've led me into a Live Nation conversation because when I took this role on, Paul, my predecessor, was having conversations with the government, big advocate for independence and very against kind of like Live Nation and so on. And the government weren't interested. So I kind of left that. And in our membership, there was only one member who was saying to me, has a big problem with Live Nation. But I said, well, how does it affect your business? And directly, there wasn't any way that it directly affected his business. But then something happened where a non-member got in touch and said, Live Nation, so you know that Live Nation blocked talent, right? You know.
Yep.
Live Nation are blocking a food truck from playing from appearing at his festival.
Wow.
And I was like, what? And he was like, yeah. I've said I've never heard of that before, but that's what was doing. And they were blocking a food truck, catering truck, from being at his festival. And yeah, and then slowly over time, I've really sat in this role and really thought about it and gone, yeah, Live Nation are a major problem to I mean, transnationals are generally, but Live Nation are the problem, and they need to be broken up, and whichever way you come and look at it, for the benefit of fans, for the benefit of festivals, for the benefit of customers, crew, and everybody, for the benefit of us all, I think probably for the benefit of themselves, they'd probably be relieved to be put out their misery, but they are. Some lovely people that work there, some really lovely people, but it's not the people that are the problem. It's the company, the corporation is a problem. And I would, yeah. And if we don't push them back and if we don't collectively try and fight them, they're only going in one direction, which is, well, look, why are grassroots music venues on fire? Like if Live Nation was capable and able and wanting, it would have given them donations years ago. It would never have let it happen. The industry would never have let it happen. Collectively, agents, Live Nation, all these people would have made sure that grassroots music venues were supported somehow, but they didn't. And what they do right now when they are on fire and music venues just are really calling for it, they're just reporting record profits. They're not not even making donations, let alone practically finding ways to fix it. And now music venues just to come up with a solution, which is a £1 ticket levy. Why are they not, when they're putting a Oasis on tour, why isn't that £1 levy on? If they wanted to, they could have just done that. And what was it, 1 million tickets? That'd be £1 million. I mean, it's peanuts to them. And that's the problem. Whereas we've got members, small festivals, who are putting £1 on voluntarily to donate to Music Venues Trust. And they're the people who can least afford it are the ones that are doing it. And those that can afford aren't. So that's my problem.
I mean, do you think a lot about, there's a lot more outdoor shows. Most of them seem to be promoted by Live Nation or Live Nation subsidiaries. And there's a bunch that sort of kind of tread on the toes of my festivals, or particularly 2000 Trees. Like there's a Cardiff Castle show the week before or the week after 2000 Trees this year with a bunch of Welsh rock bands on it.
Echo Live, yeah.
Yeah, feels like I think it's Cuff and Taylor, which is Live Nation, right?
Live Nation.
So, and like you say, the people are nice. It's probably promoted by one of my friends. I don't know, but the people there are nice. But that feels like they're kind of like the expansion of their outdoor summer live stuff feels anecdotally to me like it's been quite big in the last few years. I don't know if that's something you think about with regards to the AIF much.
Yeah, I mean, look, they bought Cuff and Taylor some time ago. Can't remember when it was. Cuff and Taylor's business model was, set up by two independents, and it was doing shows in places where there weren't primary markets. It was looking for odd spaces. Live Nation bought them, and then last year was the Cuff and Taylor year. I mean, I don't know what the number was. Somebody said 200. It definitely wasn't 200, but they just rolled out huge number of shows. So that Cardiff one was maybe 10, 11 shows in the castle. I live up in North Wales near Llangollen, and there's a pavilion here that would normally do one. So they do the Llangollen, Eisteddfod, and then they do one kind of public show. So the Manic Street Preachers played here once, which was really good. They rolled out, I think, 10 or 11 shows into that space, and they did that everywhere. And they took a load of acts that would have normally headlined the bigger festivals, because there's only so many acts that can play to 30,000 people or 25,000 people. And they got money from TK Maxx. Somebody said 5 million quid. And so they went to bands and they were able to offer them more than their fees to go and play these things. And so they took all those acts, and those acts went and played all those places. And that created a problem for some of those festivals, because some of the acts weren't there. And they just try it. But if you're Live Nation, it doesn't matter if it works or not, right? It doesn't matter if they do 100 shows and they lose loads of money and it doesn't work. And the rumors are that in some of the spots, I mean, you saw it on their sales day. Clearly, some of them hadn't sold. It doesn't matter. The point is they can afford to do that. They can do it for a couple of years. And in those couple of years, lots of events will fall. So it doesn't matter. If they make money on them, they win. And if while they're doing it, other things disappear, they win. Right? Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with Live Nation. God, that's quite bleak, isn't it?
Yeah,
Okay, let's not be bleak.
Bleak.
Cheer us up, John. Cheer us up and Henry. A wee bit of positivity before we go into on the record. Tell us about what your members, what people aren't members who could become members, what are they doing to make the situation better?
Well, I never go around sort of, please join AIF, but I don't spend any time, the value is in the membership, together stronger. I really believe in that. So they're all trying to help each other despite these kind of incredible odds. Their job is not really to worry about Live Nation, because they've got to help themselves. That's kind of the thing that's creeping that I want to do something about. And that's why you join an organization like AIF, because like James said, you're really busy running your event. So PRS, for example, are coming back to review that LP tariff. We can go off and fight that on your behalf. Martin's Law, the counter-terrorism protect duties coming in. We have lots of conversations, ironically, with Live Nation and AEG in the room, who are really powerful allies, I have to say, for those conversations. So we work with them a lot on that. So we want you to all be busy doing that so that we can go off and do some of that umbrella sort of work. But what I'm really excited about is that we're just about to reveal, so we can do it now, that because our membership's grown so much, if you put all of our festivals together and their ticketed capacity, we are now bigger than Festival Republic and Live Nation. Now, that's never happened before. So we have now collectively got more, we're bigger. Now, obviously, we don't own our festivals. It's not quite the same, but forget that little detail. We're bigger. Collectively, we're bigger. And that means that we can do things like, I'll give you an example. So there's a commercial partner that's sold a lot of goods over the years into Festival Republic and Live Nation, and also into independents. And he was saying to me, for example, like, let's pick a figure, but Live Nation could get a rate of 10% because they're Live Nation. And the best he ever got an independent was about 7.5 or 8%, right? And I gave him the figures of what we've got. And he was like, you would get 10%, maybe 10.5, maybe 11. Now, that's a game changer, right? Because we're talking about the margins and this difficulty. And because of technology, some of this is because of tech enabling us to connect in different ways, because everybody's joining AIF. If we can give our members, if we can even get them into the same playing field, the same level as Live Nation, then we can start to, really help those festivals up against someone that's much, much, much bigger than them. And that together, collectively, we can fight those forces. I want there to be, don't get me wrong, I want there to be a Live Nation, because I want to go to Reading and Leeds and Creamfields and Down. I want to go to those big shows, right? Because I want to go and see Coldplay, right? I want somebody to take that risk and put it on. But what I don't want is that decimation of the independents. And this bit would enable us just to fight fairly, play levelly, be a better competition, I'm not a football man, but, there's been a period where it's felt like it's watching Manchester City play Stourbridge Town every week, And what I want is a proper competition, which is a good game. That's probably a
Absolutely
really bad
terrible
one.
analogy
Anyone
at
who's
this
football
moment
fan?
in time. Is Man City have just been getting pumped for the last 2 months. But I
I
get what
know,
you
I
mean.
know, I know. But yeah, that's true. 13 points clear, aren't they, or something at this point?
So okay, good. And for listeners, so you're getting people tuning in. So that all sounds very problematic for festivals. That sounds like a way that festivals can fight back. That's all great. If you are a festival and you have the option to go and join the AIF, what can I do? What can I do as a listener to this podcast who's deeply invested in festivals? What would your advice be to them?
Well, a few different things. I mean, yeah, follow us on Instagram, follow AIF. We have a mailing list where every now and then, so a lot of our stuff goes out to the industry and festival adjacents, but from now and then we will talk to the public and say these are things that you can do. So when we were running the VAT campaign, it was actually the fans and the super fans getting in touch. They're the people who were writing to MPs and making things happen. You know, I know on the ground, and you probably said this, the best thing a fan can do is commit to a ticket. You know, payment plans are so important, but just putting your your hat in the ring just gives the festival some more surety and some more confidence. So even if we know all this, you think, oh yeah, I'm definitely going to go to Damnation. It's like, yeah, just put your deposit down, right? Because then it helps you guys out a lot. And of course, like I'm always just going to say, champion and try and look at what you buy, right? And again, I've got nothing wrong with these transnationals and stuff in terms of the offer, but think a little bit about what you're buying and why you're buying it, and try and champion independence if you can. But anyone listening to this is doing that, right? You've got super fans here and passionate people who probably love independence and probably do the transnationals too. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. But just be our champions.
Mr. Scarlett, is there anything you'd like to wrap up before we go on record?
No, that was great. Thanks, John. I massively appreciate you
Thanks for
coming
having me
on.
on.
Really interesting. We'll no doubt speak to you again in the future. But yeah, let's.
When I'm managing director of Festival Republic.
Yes.
We'll all be there eventually. It's fine.
And we're working for you, and the three is are absolutely shitting on independent.
When will they sponsor the podcast? Have you?
Mate, but if they can't, if we delete this episode, maybe. So hit us up with an on the record, John. What flavour are you giving our playlist?
Well, there's a band called Our Girl, and there's a song called Something About Me Being a Woman, which has been my song of the year. Just listen to it so much. It's got a little bit of echo of The Cure. There's something about the line in it that I don't know what it is, but it makes me think about the Cure disintegration period. But I like it. It's got a lovely melody, but it's also got uncomfortable lyrics, and there's some discomfort. So I've got a lot of pleasure out of the discomfort. So that's my most listened to and favorite song of this year.
Okay, I am looking forward to hearing it because James's choices recently have been a bit patchy.
Well,
James,
I'm gonna choose a patchy choice from the Damnation Festival lineup, which came out this morning. I'd there's a band on the lineup called The Haunted. And in 2004, I had a very big haunted period where I was
very good, very good.
Their album Revolver, which is probably their second most popular album, I think. But I came in on that album, and I will. This is a band that's probably going to get me properly in the mosh pit at Damnation next year. So it's like the best bits of metal, really. It's like a bit of Pantera, a bit of Slayer, and yeah. I've been listening to it all morning this morning because you didn't tell me who you were announcing, Gavin. So when I saw it, I was very excited. So there you go.
What, did you pick a song?
Oh,
Because
I did. Abysmal. Abysmal.
Abysmal. Because
Yeah.
oddly enough, James and I didn't speak. John, if you thought this was some sort of professional podcast where there was a wee bit of conversation beforehand, that doesn't happen because my choice is The Haunted now. And I was choosing I was choosing from Revolver, which was the album that really got me into The Haunted, and I was excited about when we first booked them back in 2006. I will change my answer on the spot. I'll stick with The Haunted. Nothing wrong with having a wee double dose of The Haunted, but I'm going to go back to, it might be the original with Bury Your Dead, which is maybe a touch more thrashy, which is not normally my thing, but it's a banger. I mean, they're a band for the mosh pit. It's like it will go off. Aye, incredible. Well done, James. Well,
We don't very often bond over bands from 2004, do
who
we?
knew it
So
was going to be the
yeah,
Haunted, for fuck's
yeah.
sake? So, listen, John, I'm sorry you had to come on and give so much bad news to people. I'm sure you're a very pleasant chap in the pub, but it's we have a jovial podcast. We have our the ones where we have a bit of drinking, and sometimes the listeners just want to get some information, and you're the man with the facts. So massively appreciate you coming on and doing this with us today.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
thanks, John.
thanks for having me on. I think it's a great podcast. I've been really enjoying it. And I think there's some optimism at the end. So fingers crossed. We'll be all right.
We will be
Absolutely.
on.
And let's you and I grab a beer tomorrow night at the UK Festival Awards. So yeah.
Yes. Looking forward to
Aye,
much better.
you enjoy yourselves at the festival awards, guys. Okay, right? Damnation will sit quietly up in Scotland, unloved as usual. On that note, gents, speak soon.
Take care.
Thanks.